Please welcome Daniel Carey.
Thank you, RK. That was a relatively nice introduction, since all of your compliments to me were qualified by the term relative. So I like that. And the only reason that I thought it was important to mention my astrological sign is because it's the scales of, that's what Libra, right? So that all worked out. And let me add my welcome to Wonderful Wednesday. I didn't go to Emory University. Any Emory grads here? Sometimes there are. So I don't know if they still do this, but I almost went there because they have what they call Wonderful Wednesday, no classes on Wednesdays, which I think that appealed to me. You load up Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, of course, but I like the midweek break I did. It really brings new meaning to hump day, But thank you, RK, and thank you, Reverend Bob, and all of you for inviting me to be here to talk about Pisgah Legal, and we'll certainly be back next month. But, I feel like this is choir practice in the sense that you all are already, I think, very sensitive and knowledgeable and informed about the work that we do in terms of providing legal assistance to people in need throughout Western North Carolina. But I love to be able to reinforce it to folks who already know about us and may support us, but also to folks who may not know about us. So it's a great opportunity, and I was telling my dinner mates how much I enjoy coming out to Brevard. It's just an enlightened little space, and I love coming out here because it's easy territory, I think, for us when we talk about what we do. We get a lot of head nodding and supportive sort of amens or whatever acclamations you want to use, but it is nice. So I do appreciate it. I'm going to hopefully make this work or call upon Doug to keep this thing going. But what we'll do, I just have, I think fewer than 10 slides, so let me just build in your relief right now. And I'll work through these because there are some numbers, I think, relevant and important to Transylvania County. And then we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers and maybe a little stump the band, and we can make the most of that. And then I will point out, and I'll remind you all later, that on the side table over there, I do have some information about us, and I'll go over what those are in more detail. It's not just propaganda. It's actually important collateral material that you can use. And when you come across folks that you might be able to help, this will help you make that transaction more efficient and helpful to those people that you're working with. So, all right, and then I'll pause and say, any questions? Everybody can hear me okay? We're comfortable? I noticed that more people were at dinner than are here in this room, and I don't know, I can't summon any powers or anything like that, but I did take notes, and I have some names, Reverend Bob. I might want to share those with you a little bit later. So let me first take a stab at this and see if I can make it work. Yeah, we got to get that firewall removed. Okay, Doug, there we go. So, this is who we are. We're a nonprofit law firm, is really what we are. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, but we act as a law firm. We have managing partners. They are attorneys, and we dispense legal assistance to those in need. We don't charge anything. Everything that we do is free. But we're not just a law firm. We're much, much more. In fact, Jim Barrett, who was our recently retired executive director of 41 years, and sometimes, you say that and you're like, did you outstay your, not with Jim. He woke up every day as if it was the first day on the job, and I know because he was frequently texting me with good ideas that he had. So that was great, but he described Pisgah Legal as an anti-poverty organization, and I like that. Because I think that's what we are. We're trying to help people get out of a jam with the things that we do in terms of legal assistance, but to get them on their way. And it's certainly not a handout, but it's a leg up. And I think that we know they can do things, but they've got to work on a level playing field. So we're there to provide that level playing field, give them what they need to move forward, and then go on from there. Also, we don't just provide legal assistance. We actually, and I'll get to this, but we have 15 different program areas where we can help people. And they range from, the most basic form of legal advice and assistance all the way up to doing people's income taxes and helping them get health insurance, and just about everything in between. So any civil legal matter, not criminal, but any civil legal matter, we can help with. And so that mission has been guiding us since we were put together and organized in 1978. We are based in Asheville, but we have and serve offices throughout 18 counties in western North Carolina. We're very proud to have an office here in Brevard, right on East Main Street, underneath Quotations Coffee, where Madeline McKellar Offen, who is our local attorney, works. And we have Marcia Millar as a new volunteer, by the way. So Marcia and Madeline dispense justice in Transylvania County for us. But again, that was our model from the get-go, was we knew early on we may be based in Asheville, that's the hub of western North Carolina, but we couldn't expect people in need to always get to Asheville. So we said we need to take ourselves out, to where the needs are. So consequently, and I think maybe we can go forward here, Doug, I'll just rely on you. Yeah. So a little bit finer point on our mission, and then we can get to a little bit more of geography and how we operate. But yes, we're here to help the most vulnerable people, very low income. And in fact, so low that 125% of the poverty level is, you can see, about $31,000 for a family of three. And the first thing you think about is, how does a family of three exist on $31,000 a year? Well, it isn't easy. And you know how fragile that is. And if they get in the least bit of trouble, somebody gets sick, or, you get fired, or you lose your apartment or whatever, and then it's just spiraling down into deeper trouble. So that's who we help because of the grants that we get and the money that we raise and the fact that we charge nothing. So those are the folks we have to help, and you have to qualify and be eligible. You have to be at that sort of low level. The good news is, for instances of, say, domestic violence, and in some cases, homelessness and housing issues, we can stretch that percentage of 125 up to 200%, which opens the door a little wider to people who need our help. So that is dictated. We would help as many people as we can, regardless of income, but that's just how we have to operate. But again, a stunning number. The average income of the folks that we helped last year, $18,000 a year. And nearly 3/4 of our clients are women, which also leads me to say, and let's go forward, Doug. Yeah, and let's maybe go one more. I think we can. Yeah, let's say we can go back. Thank you. Yeah, so those are the programs, but that more than a third of the work that we do is in domestic violence prevention. And that's the single largest category in which we work, which is, hard to hear. But that is the case, that most, again, of all those 15 program areas, that one consumes more than a third of our resources. Right after that, it's homelessness prevention and housing issues. And I don't need to tell the folks in Transylvania County how tight the housing market is. It's at a critical stage. And Madeline and I actually serve on the Homeless Coalition, Housing Coalition, which is a group of a lot of terrific nonprofits, churches, et cetera, that are trying to kind of tackle this problem. But those two areas, domestic violence prevention, homelessness prevention, consume easily 2/3 of the work that we do, and then all those other 12, 13 programs take up everything else. Certainly that includes immigration, and we'll be talking about that at our Justice Forum next month with Maria Elena Hincapie, who is a professor at Cornell University and a national expert on the subject and issue of immigration. She'll be a great speaker, and I hope you're here, or please go to Asheville and experience her live and in person. But all those program areas that you can see, and they're somewhat divided, if you will. Safety and security, I've talked about domestic and sexual violence prevention, housing and homelessness, and most of that, again, is going to be landlord-tenant disputes, wrongful evictions that we're trying to help people out of. And I want to add that we're not litigious in the sense that we want to go to court and that court is our default or our first sort of answer. I would say 3/4 of the work that we do is taken care of before we get to court. So, they say the best lawyers are the ones that don't really wind up in court. They're going to resolve those things beforehand. We're the same way. Again, all we're doing is providing a level playing field so that when a tenant is up against a landlord and a property owner who has legal counsel and they're pro se representing themselves, that's very difficult. And the judges don't like it either because it slows things down and clogs things up. So once we get involved, it's not that we have the magic wand or the silver bullet, but the other side starts to understand, and now we're talking the same language, and we can work things out so that far and away, most of what we do is resolve those things before we get to court, but we certainly can go to court as needed. And this also makes me think that you should understand a little bit of our intake process. So if you come in with one of these needs, you're an elderly person and you may be the victim or about to be the victim of a scam, or perhaps you need end-of-life documents, maybe a will or power of attorney or something, or you don't have health insurance, or you're a veteran and you've got issues with your benefits and things. So you're coming to us, so you think, well, I'll just call Pisgah Legal or I'll knock on their door, which they do frequently, to my office, and they think, oh, I'm just going to get to see a lawyer right then and there and resolve this. It doesn't work that way. So it's about a 3-step process, and the reason I mention this is so that, again, when you're helping people in your community and you might recommend them to Pisgah Legal, please understand that there are about 3 hoops to go through, and that takes a couple of weeks' time. We take somewhere between 900 and 1,000 calls a week for help, which is a lot. Now, those don't all turn into cases, and we don't take all those folks. A lot of those are either errant or, it's something we can resolve immediately or not. But that's the volume that we're dealing with. So what we do is we say, folks, you got to go in the front door, because everything we do, in a sense, is triage. We have X number of attorneys, we have, Y number of people who need help, and so we've got to try to manage that. So you come in the front door, and that's the initial screening, and we ask questions. The second step is really determining eligibility, and that's where we have to ask some of those financial questions. And they're personal, and we are very discreet with everything. We respect people's security, but we have to ask them, back to that point I raised earlier about, can you actually be eligible to receive our assistance? So we go through those couple of hoops, and then the third step is really being able to speak to an attorney and start to get the ball rolling and get some help. But so again, maybe we started out in 1978, and I know we did, as being sort of the traditional legal aid society, helping people with certain things. But we have since grown into this because we understand all those things are related. And you've probably heard the catchphrase, social determinants of health and things like that. Well, they're very true. And, somebody will come into us with one problem. I like to use this example. A woman lived in a trailer with her 2 kids. The trailer was substandard. Her efforts to get repairs with her landlord were not being responded to, certainly not in a timely fashion. And she learned about us, so came to us and said, can you help me with this? And we said, sure, let's explore this. During intake, we learned she didn't have health insurance, and she had not filed her income taxes for several years. Why? Well, she didn't make enough money to be on anybody's radar, didn't owe anything, so why would she file income taxes? Well, she would file them, as we reminded her, because there's an earned income tax credit she's leaving on the table, a child tax credit she's leaving on the table, and her COVID stimulus money check. That was all on the table, that are all triggered when you file your income taxes. So we filed those for her and helped her navigate and secure health insurance. She got a check from the federal government, just to kind of draw this to a close, of about $15,000. All of that was just waiting for her, and again was triggered by her filing of taxes, so she could leave that substandard trailer with her 2 kids and go find a better place to live and maybe set something aside, an emergency fund or something. But that's what we discover, is that during intake, somebody's going to come in with one thing, we're going to wind up helping them with 3 different things. And that's where our social workers come into play. So I'm very proud to say we have somewhere between 35 and 40 full-time attorneys on staff all the time. I think we're actually one of the largest law firms in Western North Carolina. We also have a half dozen social workers, because we learned early on, as we got into these other areas, attorneys can do a lot of things, but they can't do everything. And social workers have great skill sets. So we started hiring social workers because we can use them early on in the process when we're helping somebody, and then they can get the legal assistance from the attorney, but then we don't just pat them on the head and say, well, good luck, out the door you go. We let them consult with the social workers and start to handle other things. Maybe it's transportation, maybe it's food. There might be other areas in their life that a social worker can help them with and make sure they stay on that path to success. And it's not just this problem is taken care of and now they go back into a whole set of other problems. So that's our holistic approach to what we do. Is it's much more than just legal assistance. It's all of those things above. But let me pause at this point and just ask, any questions or needed clarification on what you see up here? Because there's a lot of that's jargon. For example, expunctions and driver's license restoration. Well, driver's license restoration may be self-explanatory. Expunctions are clearing people's records. And why is that important? Well, folks, may have gotten into trouble in the past, but they've paid their dues, paid their fines, done their time, whatever it is. But that blot is still on their record until you actively get it cleaned up. And the district attorneys in every county have to deal with those paperwork, and they have to maintain all that. And when they see us coming to say, hey, we have an expunction, they're happy, because this is one less thing for them to maintain and worry about. Importantly, and I put this under the category of workforce development, A lot of people need jobs, and we need employees, right? We have a lot of businesses that need employees. Well, if these folks apply and that flag goes up because they have a blot on their record, they're going to get shifted into the no pile. And we know there's a no pile, a maybe pile, and a yes pile. Our job is to get them out of the no pile into the maybe pile, and then let the employer take it from there. But once we clean up their record, that's terrific. And then, of course, let's say they get hired. Well, how are they going to get there? A lot of these folks have lost their driver's licenses in that previous mess they were in. So we get those restored. We have one attorney dedicated to this. Now, that's all the good news. The bad news is we limit most of that work due to funding and capacity to Buncombe County. Sometimes we'll, Ed Treat, who's our attorney that does this, sometimes he'll leak outside of Buncombe County and try to help other people as he can. But we're also pursuing funding so that we can get another Ed Treat so that we can have somebody else doing that kind of work. But I love this, and people get it, Nobody, there's like 1 million drivers in North Carolina that don't have licenses, that are on the road, that are driving around without licenses. So we're taking care of that, or at least putting a dent in it, and then we're helping them clean up their records so they can be employable. And that's really important, because there's nothing more life-changing, right, than having a job and making money and making your way. So we're just trying to help people do that. But to my question about any questions, yes, sir.
Expulsions involve criminal behavior.
Yep.
You cross that line at that point.
Yeah, it is. That's exactly the way. That is where we cross that line. It's in the past. We're not representing them in court. That's taken care of with public defenders and things like that. But once they become civilians, then if that issue comes up, then we help clean it up. And actually, it's pretty neat. We do this about twice a year with third-year law students from Duke Law School. We bring them in, we do these clinics, and we invite people to come in with those issues, with either a blot on their record or need for a license, and we kind of wholesale take care of a bunch of those in one fell swoop. And it's a great experience for the Duke Law students who are exposed to something they otherwise might not know about. And it's a great sort of gratifying day, but that's a great question. Thank you. Yes, so the ACA navigation, we were for 10 years lobbying hard for the adoption of Medicaid in North Carolina to take the federal funds for that. And that really was a 10-year battle that we waged. And I'm happy to say that Jackie Kiger, who's our new executive director, was our point on that. Jackie's been with us for almost 15 years. She was our chief operating officer, working very closely with Jim Barrett. And just about a month ago, Jackie took over the reins after a national search, but she was clearly the one. But that's the kind of thing we do. So a lot of it is retail, as I say, retail assistance to people one-on-one. But we try to tackle some of those policy matters as well in Raleigh and do things that'll help people across the board. Likewise in immigration, and you may hear more about this next month if you're able to attend the Justice Forum, but we've sued ICS, immigration and citizenship, and because of the backlog. For folks that want to become citizens, they're here legitimately and so on and so forth, there's like a 10 to 15 year, no kidding, backlog on them getting through the process, which is, as they say, justice delayed is justice denied. So we've actually sued on that from time to time, joining some other states, and it does move the needle. I mean, they understand the problem. They're overworked and understaffed, and they're kind of stuck. But when you get a judge's order to kind of clean a whole bunch up and get these off the table, then wholesale, hundreds of people in one fell swoop can become citizens, which is great. But again, it's our immigration attorneys joining with others who take on those battles on a broader scale in addition to the fine work they do with each client. So good here. All right, let's move forward, Doug. So what we know is if you don't have a lawyer, your chances of winning, prevailing, or getting the justice that you deserve are much less. Half as likely to get a desired outcome. And a lot of people who don't have an attorney representing them just, really feel scared, beaten up, hopeless, and so they just capitulate. And that's not right either. So those that don't have us or someone else helping them, they just give up, and we don't want that to happen. In North Carolina, we're lousy with lawyers, as every state is, and I say that affectionately, coming from a family of attorneys. But the attorneys that represent the eligible people for legal aid, well, they get that, it's 1 to 8,000 versus 1 to 554. And so that's why it matters. And that's why, in fact, your awareness and sensitivity to this is heartening to us, but also you're doing your job in steering those people our way because they don't know about this. And when we don't pull our potential clients together in a room. We don't know where they are, and they don't know us. So it's a lot of word of mouth. I mean, we can advertise all day long, but really it's word of mouth because it's a trust issue. People need to know, hey, yeah, you can go to those guys and they'll help you out. And that peer-to-peer sort of endorsement is really what works most. But you all are on the front lines helping people, so you can steer them our way. Okay, Doug, let's do one more here. Go ahead. Oh, there we go. All right, so a little bit back to the geography. I probably should have moved this up a little bit more, but I talked about the 18 counties that we serve and that we're based in Asheville, but I live and work in Hendersonville. We have an office there. As I said, Madeline is here in Brevard, and we have one in Rutherfordton with a couple of attorneys and a social worker there. And I mention that because the 4 counties that I work in are Transylvania, Henderson, Polk, and Rutherford. But we're serving all these other areas, and I have a couple of peers who do the same work in their areas in these regional offices. But we've got offices wherever the dots are. We've got offices really and more. This is a little dated. We've since added a few. Again, with the point being, we try to go where the action is and bring those services where they're most needed. Good. Okay. All right. Now, so last year, let's just round up and say, we're taking like 1,000 calls a week, so that's about 50,000 calls. Now, again, those don't all turn into something, but we were able to help more than 23,000 people last year, which is pretty remarkable, including more than 7,000 children. And that's an impressive number, and it's a reflection not just of hard work and need, but I want to say that Pisgah Legal is good about caring for its employees, and certainly that begins with our attorneys. We know that if we retain those folks, then they're going to be more effective, more efficient. There's no gaps in coverage and service. We don't have to lose someone and then bring on someone new and orient them. And so that's a reflection of the fact that we were really at full throttle with our attorneys, almost 40 all last year. And so there was always a little bit of natural attrition, but we do take care of our folks, and it's a competitive environment. I mean, they could make more in the private sector, yes, but it's different work. It's harder work in some respects. This is hard sort of work to sort of absorb because you're dealing with really life problems with these folks, not just contracts. But I like this number because, again, it reflects the fact that we invest in our folks, our own folks, and good benefits. I mean, we're not offering enormous salaries or anything like that, but we try to be competitive, try to retain those folks so that we can maintain good numbers like that. But as I said earlier, again, about a quarter of our work, maybe a little bit more in family law, and then homelessness prevention, and then the financial impact. Now this is key because I referenced that example of the woman with the trailer who got her $15,000 plus back from the federal government in taxes. Well, we were able to help clients get about $24 million in quantifiable financial benefits, which again, it goes to the anti-poverty aspect of our organization. So we're really trying to get somebody off the dime, moving in the right direction, and out the door with something to be able to move them forward. So, now let's talk about Transylvania County. So last year we helped more than 800 people, including 259 children, about 150 with their housing situations, and that's Madeline's primary responsibility. She's the co-director of our housing and homelessness prevention program. So most of what she does is in that realm. And then, again, helping families and particularly women and children be safe and secure. And then access health care, which is worth mentioning. This is an apolitical comment, but Claudia Hawkins is on our board of directors. She's our treasurer. She's a CPA by training, and I understand is running for school board out here, but also a terrific volunteer. She's been an Affordable Care Act navigator for some time, helping these people that I'm talking about secure health insurance. So good for her and good for Transylvania County. And then again, helping people get their taxes, credits, refunds, whatever that's due them, to try to move them in the right direction. And that's all sort of embodied in the $24 million that we've helped kind of put back in the economy through people that need that. So, okay. Now, so the sobering news, almost 20% of the folks that live in Transylvania County are eligible for our services. And if you remember that number, that 125% of the poverty level, that means a lot of folks out here, as you well know, are in need. And more than 20% of those folks are children. A lot of us, and I say us because I'm just about cost burdened with my rent in Henderson County, but you know, if you're spending more than a third of your income on housing, you're cost burdened. Why is that important? Well, because that's the fragile enterprise. Something happens and you know, your housing situation is compromised, then that's the cascade of problems that just start following from there. And, you know, that's probably the key determinant, not having a stable place. And then, of course, the residual impact on kids, because if they have to leave school or change schools, then they fall behind, farther and farther behind, and all those things start adding up. So, again, the housing situation out here is difficult, and it's not peculiar to Transylvania County. It's throughout, really, western North Carolina. So, but a lot of uninsured folks, and then again, some food insecure folks. So there are good organizations out here with whom we work that do this more directly, food banks and MANA and other good social service agencies. We're not trying to do that, but again, we're complementing what they do and vice versa. So we invite all those organizations to send people our way, and then the same. If we know, because of our smart social workers, that another agency or organization can help them, you know, we steer them that direction. So, okay. All right, see, we made it. But I do want to invite questions, and I'm happy to go over anything else in more detail, hopefully not excruciating detail, but I want you to be knowledgeable about who we are and what we do. And if I, you know, need to say a little bit more about the profile of our organization, I can. It's about an $11 million annual budget, so pretty big annual budget for a nonprofit. But again, we have almost 40 full-time attorneys. We use about 200 to 250 pro bono attorneys on top of that who help us do that work that we can't handle. And again, social workers, other volunteers and experts that help bring something to the solutions that we're trying to offer our clients. But a stable organization, good leadership, both volunteer and staff-wise. We're a 4-star Charity Navigator approved group. We're platinum with Candid and GuideStar. So, we undergo an annual audit, and, we keep reserves, and we keep it clean and do what we're supposed to do, because our treasurer makes sure that we do that, and that's good. But that hopefully builds confidence in people that want to know that we're here to stay, as we have been since 1978. But I think a well-run operation, we can always be better. But we're excited about Jackie's new leadership. She's an attorney and a very serious and very polished person. I think she's a great representative of Pisgah Legal. Everybody, are you in a chicken a la king coma or something? Mike, here comes Mike. All right,
Yeah,
Mike,
hey,
I had dinner with you.
Thanks very much. I was really impressed that you skipped dessert.
You noticed. Well, I noticed you had 2. Mike.
Yeah. I was hoping you wouldn't bring that up. Do you do wage theft? Because
yeah.
That's the kind of thing that happens with employers who take tips away from their people, or who shortchange them on their wages.
Yeah.
We used to live in Charleston, and there was a very famous deli restaurant there in Charleston who was prosecuted for wage theft. And I don't know whether the local legal services were involved, but they got caught with their hands in the employees' pockets.
Yeah. I think I remember, I lived in Charleston for about 10 years. I think I know to which you are referring. The short answer, I'm going to say yes. I don't know of any specific cases that we have taken on in that regard, but it's a great segue into what I invite everybody to do is call it. If you have a question, if you or perhaps someone that you're trying to help, call and find out, because through the intake process, we'll be able to determine if we can help with that or not. I feel pretty confident we can and do, but I couldn't cite a specific example. And I was also saying, I think it was at our table that, I'm one of the outreach people, and part of my job is to raise money and then help steer people to Pisgah Legal, but I'm not an attorney. And we work hard to try to get our attorneys up here too, but we're, respectful of their time, because, they're toiling away all day. But I would like our attorneys to be here more than I, because they're the horse's mouths, and they can answer these directly from experience. But again, given those 15 areas, and notice one of them was like consumer law and things like that. Well, I think that probably could loosely fall under that. Somebody's being wronged. It's essentially a civil matter, and if they qualify, they should call us and find out if and how we can help them. Yeah, but that's becoming a big thing, especially as we all check out of places now, and when you do, they're kind of pushing the tip thing on us, right? For the simplest of transactions, the things that we didn't tip before, and now whenever we check out, it's like right there. And you kind of wonder, is that being distributed behind the wall? How do those people know what's in there, and then is that being fairly redistributed to the people who it's supposed to help? Okay, Stump the Band came early, and I lost. Okay. Oh, good, okay.
Pisgah Legal sounds rather unique. I wonder if there are comparable agencies around other parts of North Carolina and other states.
Not really. I think your first statement is right on. We are unique. There are a lot of good legal aid groups out there in North Carolina and across the country, but few, if any, have the breadth and depth of scope that we do. And we know this, and it's not just anecdotal, but when we participate in national forums or we go to training sessions and it's all legal aid groups around the country, folks are like drawn to us. They're like, how do you all do what you do? How have you grown into that? And again, without just defaulting to Jim Barrett, because obviously it was more than just Jim, but our whole management team and our board and volunteer leadership. But it is unusual. And a little bit of the story is because of the way the funding goes, and I'll say that about 75% of our annual revenue, so towards that $11 million annual budget, about 75% of that comes from grants. About a quarter of that, maybe up to 30% of that, are federal grants. Then the other big chunk are from private foundations and so on. Then the other 25% comes from individuals, and that's mostly where I'm responsible for. But the way the funding was triggered years ago, if you wanted to qualify for that federal money, you couldn't do a lot of these other things. You were really hamstrung or handcuffed into just doing certain things. And it was by design. It was a kind of a political thing, and Congress said, they can get some money for this. A lot of it comes through the Victims of Crime Act, VOCA funding, which directly funds our domestic violence prevention program, and is funds, and it's worth this tangent if you will allow, that's funded by bad actors who are fined, penalized, lose judgments, and all that money goes into this pot that trickles down to the states and then goes to help domestic violence prevention programs. But you have to collect those funds and enforce those fines, penalties, et cetera, to make sure the money is in there. Again, another apolitical comment, just a fact. The previous administration in Washington wasn't as aggressive in collecting said fines, penalties, et cetera. The funding went down, and it doesn't just snap back. It drags along. It's a formula, and so we're building it back up. Well, we lost a lot of that, but that's indicative of the money that was coming down, and you had to kind of play by certain rules for the federal funding. And we looked early on and said, is it worth it to do that, to be that hamstrung or to be that dependent on that single source of funding? And we said no. We said, you know what? If we tell our story, then people will believe in us and support us and help us do what we're doing. And so that has been our model. And because we raise 3/4 or more from private sources of funding, we can do what we want with that money. And I don't mean to be willy-nilly, but I mean we're not hamstrung by sort of federal rules and limitations. So that's where we grew. And and so we could start telling that story, and just, if I were up here just telling you the narrow stuff of what we did, that'd be interesting and that'd be good. But I'm able to, tell you stories from 14, 15 different programs, and it's going to touch somebody. Somebody's going to know somebody on that, and that may appeal to you. So that's the way we're able to get a broad array of support from different people. So, yeah, another good question. I don't have $1. I'd give you $1 for those great questions.
This is a narrow question. We have an acquaintance who would like to get a job. Probably she's just turned 60, and fast food would be fine. But she has a misdemeanor on her record, and the misdemeanor was because her dog was off the leash one too many times.
Yeah.
And so they're saying she can't get a job.
Yeah.
Is there any way that
Yeah.
could be helped?
Yeah, so, yeah, call us. That's a perfect example of what I think would be a nice, clean expunction, maybe? No? But, oh, I thought you were shaking your head. No, I think, while that wasn't a criminal matter per se, it's still something that's coming up, right? Because when employers, they buy into those systems that do all that background check for them, the flag goes off, and then as soon as they see it, they get dismissed.
Right.
The work that we do makes sure that that flag doesn't go off because it's cleaned up. So yes, you can see me afterwards. I'll give you my card or whatever, but I would encourage that person to call us and let us help, because I'm pretty confident we can.
Do you do anything with voting rights restoration?
Not to my knowledge, not to my knowledge. And again, because, and again, now I've only been there a couple of years, so not everything has come into my awareness, but I don't think so. But I'll go back and ask. I will, you know. I know we work pretty closely with the League of Women Voters, and we do a lot of educational programs with groups like that, and but I don't know that we're getting down into that. Yeah. I don't think I have any questions for you, except that I will just say, if you're interested in picking anything up, this card is probably the best one, because it's just the basic of who we are, how to get a hold of us, and kind of what we do. And it's everything that we do, at least in this retail sense, is bilingual. So English on one side, Spanish on the other. So I would commend this to you. And then this one with the little map on the front. Then it has our program areas in the back, and with a little more explanation of what they are. And again, I mercifully spared you going through each and every one of those. And then this, and we saw this on a couple of the slides, but this is our impact report for Transylvania County. So these are the numbers and the people that we helped in 2023 in Transylvania County, and then a little more of a regional picture on the backside of all 18 counties. And then the, the last one is what I talked about earlier of, I think, representing fairly our intake process so that people understand to be patient with us, because again of that volume of calls, the number of people we can do and our limited capacity. This kind of walks through how that happens, what's expected, so that you know, if you're talking to somebody that is trying to clean up their record, and you can help them understand that we're going to get to them, but we have to jumble things. And sometimes, you know, we do let people jump line, because if somebody has to be in court the next day and it's a matter of, you know, personal security, we're going to move them up the line. As I said, it's kind of a triage system. But I really hope that, and thank you, RK, for putting that up. I hope to see all of you next month. And we're so grateful that you all invited us to have our watch party here. So it'll be a live feed. It's just like you're going to be there, and you'll see Maria Elena and here and just be part of the audience. We'll probably have some food beforehand. I don't know if it'll be as good as tonight's, but we'll have some food. There'll be desserts, Mike. So good. But we hope you join us for that, and a nice program. It's yeah, it starts 6:30 and it should be over by 8, so you can get back home to do what you need to do. But yeah, it is October 10th. Yep, Carol, and that'll be good. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks.